So we're live. Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining our new episode of Land Your Right Clients. Today we have a pretty special guest, Tammana. She's the CEO of and co-founder of Convosight. They're on a mission to empower community entrepreneurs, superpower your Facebook groups. They're already helping more than 5,000 groups that manage over 110 million users. I think she's going to tell us a bit more about that too. And she also started with the Facebook group. I don't know if it's one of the largest that Facebook has, but I think it's like, 1.3, 1.2 million people, 2 million people on WhatsApp. And I'm pretty interested in learning more about how that was achieved. Because I know using WhatsApp for business and just with friends, like managing conversations on WhatsApp is a mess. So I don't know, interested in learning how you did it with 2 million people. So welcome. Thanks for joining today.
Thanks so much, Diego. It's great to be on the show. I'm a part of your community and a fan of the awesome work that you do. So looking forward to this conversation. Thanks again for having me.
Awesome. Yeah, and just a reminder quickly for those of you joining live, make sure that you comment as well. Comment live. We'll be asking questions. We'll be taking questions as well at the end of the interview. So make sure you comment live and also ask questions afterwards. So let's get started. So the first thing I want to ask you is, I saw that you started working in investment banking. And so how did the transition go from investment banking to building a group? When did that light bulb, click and you were like, all right, like this is not my thing. Or I'm doing a group of moms. And then how did that whole story work?
So thanks for asking that question. The light bulb clicked when I became a mother. Okay. So I was doing investments for 9 years in my career in New York. And when I became a mother and was happily on my maternity leave while still, working from home because, I was a portfolio manager and there was no backup. I was all set to go back to work after 3 months. And then suddenly something happens that I had not expected. My baby decides to not take the bottle. So he was breastfed and he just wouldn't take the bottle. And I was all set with my breast pump and thinking that, I'm going to go to work and pump and he's going to have milk through the bottle. And I was like, I've seen almost every baby around me drink milk from a bottle. How can this not happen? So long story short, that led to a series of doctor visits, like figuring out what's going on. And in the end, what really came to rescue was there was a WhatsApp group that I got added in, which was, a new mommies group. And that's where I got a suggestion to use this one particular bottle because someone else had the exact same issue. And that's really what made me feel that, like this one-way content and information and, just getting all the advice is not enough. It's very important to be in a community, to be surrounded by other people who are going through the same experiences. So the early thoughts of baby destination really emerged when I became a mother. And then there was no looking back. And what's interesting is when we looked at India, because I was in New York then, it just seemed like it's a much bigger need gap in India. Because in India, there's you don't have that much access to experts like you have in New York. There's limited protocols around, what to do with infants. So it just felt like, someone has to do it in the world and let me do it.
Yeah, that's a cool story. I can relate to it. As I was mentioning, like we just had a baby a month ago and my wife, in Canada, they give you up to a year of maternity leave. And me and my wife were like, man, why would someone take like even 6 months, right? And now that we have the baby, we're like, oh, this totally makes sense. Like, yeah, this totally makes sense. And so you joined the WhatsApp group, and then what happened next? Like, when did the whole, I'm going to start a Facebook group or WhatsApp is just not the best way to communicate or build a community. Like, I want to grow it. And when did you decide to open something open the Facebook group?
Sure. So from that first thought to when we finally started the Facebook group community, it was actually over 1 year because that thought just kept developing. Like after that, I started observing more, right? Like every decision I had to make was a very complex decision-making process. Like I was taking all these inputs. So I kept observing, and this thought sort of fully formed in my mind that we need to have a Reddit-like platform for moms. So we need to have a Reddit where moms can help each other, not judge, they trust, and are able to provide sort of, the right suggestions, because there's a constant discovery journey a mother is on, right? And that's what we need to solve. So it took up to 1 year because I wanted to do it like in a proper way. So I said, I'm going to quit my job and just work on this. It wasn't easy for me to quit my job because I was in investment, so they would not let me go. And then I was, with my research, I was very convinced that I want to move back to India and do this for mothers, because there's so many mothers, just the population in India and the need in India is so large. So it was a big decision. So convincing my husband, who's now also my co-founder, by the way, he's also spent 15 years in finance in New York, trying to make like a business plan to show that how I'll build a community that'll become so big. And so that then, quitting my job, all that took time. And finally, we moved back to India in late 2016 to start working on what was called Baby Destination. So we had a name by that point, Baby Destination. And we spent the first few months just trying to talk to a lot of moms, do surveys, just trying to understand where do they go for information, what information is useful. And what we discovered was 80% of the time that they spend online is on Facebook and WhatsApp. And that's their also primary information source, primarily through content, but then also there's lots of parenting communities. So that already existed, right? They're all generic parenting communities, right? So with that, we started just doing content because we wanted to see if we provide informational content, which is clutter breaking, or does it reach mothers organically on Facebook? So a lot of testing, a lot of work around content. We started babydestination.com, posting content, and we learned for the first 7-8 months, just their behavior, how they interact with content. And then finally in July 2017, we decided that we will not launch a separate Reddit. Instead, we will build these communities on Facebook groups. So that was a big shift from sort of the initial thought of launching a separate platform. And I'll tell you the reason. So the core insight there was that, the fundamental truth in a community is trust. If there is no trust, there'll be no conversations or connections or requests, suggestions. And in order to establish that trust, there needs to be frequent, meaningful interactions, right? You trust someone when you know someone when you interact with them. And there's no better platform than Facebook, where people are already spending so much time. Groups already provide a closed sort of forum for people to interact. And then this whole set of notifications, which we all know, right? Once you get into Facebook, you cannot get out of Facebook. So we sort of had this thought that Facebook groups will become the future Reddit of all categories. So we said, let's go where our users are, where moms are, and start building on Facebook. So that's how our first Facebook group started in July 2017, and it was called Home Remedies for Babies and Moms.
And so it seems like you did start your group as like going back as a business, and then you pivoted and said like, all right, like Facebook groups make sense. And then you started the group, and then it just exploded in membership, I would imagine. And then what issues did you started seeing in growing the group, I guess, and starting the group? Because I think we have a lot of people who are either thinking about starting groups, or they already manage a group. How did you achieve that explosive growth at first? And what things did you, like looking back, do you say this year, these are things that we did really well when we started, and these are things that I think we could have done better, and people should take into consideration if they're thinking about starting a group or they already have a group?
Sure. So, there's two parts to your question. One is people who are thinking of starting a group, right? Like how to start a group and get it to a certain level of, like, we call it a MVC, a minimum viable community, okay, right? So get it to that level where, the community it is a community, right? And not just a bunch of people together. So that's one part. And the second part is how do you scale the community, right? Once you start seeing it work. So I'll mention a few things, which really worked for us. Some of them were hypotheses which worked right, and some things which didn't work. Our first community that we started, which is, we actually started it before Home Remedies. That's a community we just started. So when we started babydestination.com with content, just to experiment, we just started a community. And that community never crossed the MVC, right? It was called the Moms United. I don't know. Looking back, I don't know what it means. And now when I look back, it's actually like any other parenting, like, it's a generic parenting community. We just felt moms have to unite. So Moms United, right? Just compare that name with the second name. The second community was Home Remedies for Babies and Moms, right? How specific is that and how broad is that? So the first community didn't work. It was just started without any thought and just because let's test it out. So I'll tell you the few things that work for us, right? One thing is this thought of segmentation. So we decided to build on Facebook, but then I looked around and I saw that, look, there's thousands of Facebook communities, right? Just within India. Then why is it that, there's still a need for information? And what I realized was there's very few informational communities, like they're not segmented on the pain point. And now if I were to take some other examples, so Baby Destination was segmented on the specific pain points and life stage and location. So kids nutrition is one specific pain point, right? Where moms need help. Breastfeeding is another pain point. So that was our strategy to then have communities which are informational. That was our purpose, right? To provide information to moms and segment them. On WhatsApp, we had communities which were more local and hyper-local, right? So that's another great way to segment. And then life stage. So mom of a 1-year-old will probably not get a lot of value talking to mom of a 10-year-old. Yeah. And you're a new dad, so you're going to see how kids grow in 0 to 1, and you're like, right? So that life, yes. And this strategy actually works very well. So to the audience, if you guys already have a community that's thriving and you're thinking of scaling and expanding to more number of communities, do think of segmentation. Niche or a specific pain point is better than having a generic community. It's like tribes form around specific, pain point or interest areas. So I think that was one thing. The other thing is just, the name part. So I know what's in a name. Well, a lot is in a name because the majority of growth in a group will happen organically over a period of time. Initially there could be hacks. You'll add your friends. You can send it to your email lists. If you're a business, you could do some hack with paid ads, etc. But in the end, the majority of the growth will come through organic recommendations of Facebook, and which means you have a very small real estate in which your group gets recommended to a potential member. The name and the image really matters. So one hack or one, how we decided to set the name was have the pain point or the purpose within the name plus the TG. So I'll take examples, right? Home remedies. Home remedies is the value for babies and moms. So it was clear that, okay, if I go here, I'll find home remedies for myself and my kids. Kids nutrition and recipes, our second community. So it's not just recipes, it was also nutrition. And we had like a few nutritionist moms in the community and then kids. So again, when we started, there were no such communities on Facebook, right? Breastfeeding support for moms. So try to have a name which is specific. What is the value and what is the target segment, and have an image that resonates. So those were the things that, we did right. Also, the other thing, which was a hypothesis, but it worked very, very well, was we wanted to have the core community managers emerge from within the community. So it was like a decentralized model. And I always take this example. If you were to think of TED, right, which is a really big community, right? Like, so the main event, the TED event, which we all know about it, but what resonates with us, what we can relate it is with our local TED events, right? Which is somewhere we could participate or talk or listen to. And that's really that whole decentralized thing, that if a community is in South India, then a mom who's from that community, from that region should manage. So I think this let the core members emerge and the community managers emerge. I call them volunteer co-creators of your community. So just keep an eye on them and give them time to emerge. So those are just few things that I would say. Well, the other thing is spam. We were always very, very anal about spam. I will say one thing: the easier it is for someone to enter your community, the harder it is for you to clean your community, right?
Yeah.
So just keep that in mind. A lot of people tell me, hey, we do contests to increase membership and we can do giveaways. But what will that lead to? It'll lead to maybe a bunch of people that have just joined your community for that giveaway, or just referred members for that, which is what you don't want. So growth does not just mean number of members, it means number and quality. And quality is more important than the absolute number. So we actually used to focus a lot on spam control since the beginning. We used to have like a cleaning crew of moms. We used to go and clean communities and remove members. And I think the highest number of members we've ever approved, like it's 50% of the total requests. We were very careful while approving members. What we did not do right, I think initially when this we exploded, I think in 6 to 8 months, we were like the fastest growing Facebook group in India. Facebook did like a case study on us. And
Yeah, I saw that,
we started growing very fast. And I think it took us some time to, like there was a point where in a couple of communities, the community went stray from its main purpose. Like there was a community called Mom's Lifestyle. And the reason to start that community was to help moms who go through postpartum depression, just to talk about lifestyle things and feel good. And because, that really helps moms who are going through postpartum depression, right? If they have a bunch of other moms to talk about these things. And I remember like that community, it went really haywire. People started posting like, just memes and we were never an entertainment community. That was just not us. So it took like then a few months to very closely sort of moderate it, bring it back. So the learning there is that starting a community is like starting a company, I would say, right? And it's if not more, at least as hard as getting traction in your startup, right? Because it's all organic. So it's very important to set the values, the mission, the vision of the community, and what is the purpose, right? Because if the clearly you state the purpose, the more relevant people who will request to join the community. And again, the closely that you moderate and keep and reinforcing the guidelines, you'll ensure that people are sort of on track, because you don't want your community to just become a place where they share good morning messages. And so that's one thing. That was one learning we had. And then, from there on, we were very careful about it.
I think that's important. And I see it as well. I think everyone who's in a WhatsApp group, when you first join, there's always that person that like, good morning, people, and like sends the gifts, you're like, oh my God, like another group. You don't want that to happen to your Facebook group. And I think we'll get more into moderation. I had a follow-up question on something you mentioned, and it's, your group starts as a group of people that start talking, interacting, and then becomes a community. What is a community then? Like, how do you define, at what point have you actually built or achieved a community versus just saying, hey, these are a group of friends or people that know each other or interacting? And I see it a lot in, for example, groups that are like just to buy and sell. And there's people posting, 100 things every day, just trying to sell and buy. Like, I sometimes wonder, like, is that a community? Like, I don't know. Like in your way or the way you think about it and how you've approached building communities, how do you define a community, and at what point have you achieved a community within a Facebook group and not just you and your friends talking about a topic,
Sure. I think it's a very interesting question, right? So I'll tell you, again, just breaking it down, right? First things first, right? You need to set the purpose of your community. And like I said, right, defining the purpose and audience is very important. So if you start out as a buy and sell community, if the purpose of your community is to have the right set of buyers and sellers come together and exchange, information, value, sort of, get sort of this, the sales happen because it's people who are looking for stuff and people who are providing stuff. If you've set that out as the purpose, then that is a community. It's a buy and sell community. It's not like a breastfeeding, information community where people will be discussing their, issues around breastfeeding. So whatever is you define as the purpose of community, if it is a golfing community, right, people will come and share stuff about golf and their kits, and so that's the point. I think as long as it sticks to what you define as a purpose. If it's an entertainment community, and there's lots of those we see on Convosight as well, people are just sharing images. There's actually one community I came across. It was crazy, just started a couple of months ago, and I think it's in millions of members. It's just people sharing images of their window. So, and I think it started during the pandemic. So what do you see outside your window? And I was in that community, and like I was spending, before I knew, I'm there for 10 minutes just scrolling, and it was beautiful. I was like, wow, this is a good community, dude. Like, just make me feel good and feel connected through images. Yeah. So I know, right? In the traditional sense, you may say it's not a community, but maybe so the point is, whatever is the purpose of the community, if that's being fulfilled, if that's the target audience there, it is a community. To your second question on when does it become from just a group of people to people who are talking, to people who are interacting. So like I said, trust and connection, right? The job of an admin is to facilitate connections. And we need to measure, how do you measure that connection? You measure that connection through conversations. So we actually have like a 5-stage community model. I mean, it's not complex. Really, this very simple thing we started measuring was, what is the admin to user generated content ratio? Like, what is the ratio of the total conversations that's contributed by the admin? And you start seeing, it's very beautiful, as communities progress. Initially, it's just the admin who's posting and trying to get people to make their first posts and engage and interact. And before you know, you start seeing that admin. So in mature communities, the content that an admin posts is less than 10% of the total content. It's user generated. So it's an admin UGC ratio that we look at. Now, whether those conversations are, about digital marketing or they're about buy and sell, whatever is the purpose of the community is being fulfilled. So.
And then once you start growing, like I want to talk about moderation, because I think this is a topic, and I think an issue that I see a lot in community admin groups and the power admin groups within Facebook. One is, what things do you think, how hard should you be with moderation? Because for example, the moment someone spams something, I block them, I delete them. I don't even bother like sending a warning. I don't have time. I'm like blocking, and I think there's other people who are like, no, well, you send them a message and there's things that you can do to help the person understand that there's rules that they broke, which rule did they break, and I think Facebook is doing a better job doing that as well. One is, how do you moderate? How hard should you be when you're starting versus if you already have an engaging community? And at what point also do you bring more people to help you? You talked a lot about building like the community members, same community members who can help you moderate, right? I think they're the best at knowing what's the right content, what things work, like what thing might be considered for spam that someone who's never been in a community, they might think it's spam, but it's normal. At what point do you bring moderators, and how hard should you moderate content at the beginning versus someone who's already trying to grow their group? Or is there a difference, I guess, in the models that you guys have built?
Sure. So again, just going back to first principles, what do we need to? And it's the conversations. Proactively moderating, right? Just proactively being on top of the members who are joining your community, and then the conversations that are happening in your community is very, very important. So like I said, very, very important to ensure that profiling is done before a member enters your community. right? Because there could be members who are not doing spam conversations, but who are lurking around, and especially in women-based communities, right? And then start sending personal messages to your members. Those are like the worst kind of people, right? Because they've worked hard to somehow create a profile that looks real, and they may pass your filter. And those are the ones that, really no model can catch, right? So I would say that encourage your members, and which is why I think member feedback is very important, to report if anything like that happens. We had a lot of those issues, right? Because it was women and moms, and suddenly before someone's just personal messaging them. Those are the people you block. Like you block and you report to Facebook, like, right? But first things first, being very careful about people who you approve to be a part of your community, laying down your guidelines very strictly. That's very, very important. And that's what I call as part of being proactive. So being very strict about what's acceptable, what's not, and not leaving anything for gray. And if you're not sure, I would rather say it's better to be more sort of strict, if that's the right word, than give them more leeway. Now, just setting guidelines is not enough, right? Imagine I'm a person, you've approved me today, and maybe I read the guidelines, maybe I don't in the description. We have to reinforce them. At least once every week, there should be a post where we reinforce our guidelines and our decorum and what's acceptable and what's not. I don't see a lot of admins doing that, which is why I'm making this point. It's almost as important as doing a welcome post, if not, more, right? So that. Now, how, again, there are things that you put in your not acceptable bucket, and then there are things for which you say that I could give a warning or two. Right? For example, somebody's promoting because they've started a new YouTube channel. Again, for someone, it may be not acceptable, but for some other communities, it may be that, okay, it's a mom who's trying to, start a living, and, she's trying to become an influencer. So maybe we, give her a warning, but then start a day where they all can promote themselves. So you'll have to bucket them. And we always did that. We bucketed it into sets, sort of one where people who you block and remove and report, and also report to other members. So we used to sometimes screenshot and then just show people that, look, these are the comments and these people have been blocked.
I see.
Right?
I think that's a good way to show, instead of just like, because I think sometimes with the policies you write it and it's like, well, but it's still, there's a gray area, right? Of like,
yeah, exactly.
Comment, is it really spam or not, or it's considered spam, because and you don't want it to become subjective to the moderator, right? Where one moderator is blocking some people and the other one isn't, and then you start a whole conversation fight within the group, right?
Exactly. Which is why it's always good to reinforce it by sharing that, but then also sharing, look, these are the people who were removed. So, and I'll tell you why it's very, very important to manage spam and sort of the whole moderation discussion, because it's not just to reduce spam, for the benefit of members and safety. Of course, that's very important. But Facebook's now become very, very strict. So there has been communities that have just disappeared overnight because there were more than 2 or 3 spam warnings, which, were not sort of handled in time because either they got missed or whatever. But Facebook is very strict about spam now. So it's critical. I mean, it's one of the 3 things, like facilitating connections, managing spam. Like, it's as important as, the effort that you do to facilitate the connections, to make sure there's no wrong conversations happening. So I think just very important to do that. I'll also say this, that when we think about growth, engagement is sort of the leading indicator to growth. So we looked at a lot of data in baby destination communities and other communities now, and we've seen as the engagement rate increases, there is the growth follows. And the explanation to that is that as your engagement rate increases, maybe the Facebook algorithm picks it up and starts recommending it more. And engagement will increase if people feel that they're in a safe and secure place, right? Where there is no spam. So it's also very highly linked to ensuring quality conversations and engagement, which would eventually lead to growth.
And I would imagine, because you mentioned that spam is key to control spam, and one of the ways you can control spam. And you mentioned before, like we used to accept just 50% of people that try to join the group. Like if you filter people, then I think, as you mentioned, like the harder it is to get to the group, the better quality of members or a community you build. I know Facebook allows you to ask 3 questions. One is, what metrics, or one is, what questions do you ask or you recommend asking that can help you filter people better as well, so that you can minimize spam, or at least I think that's a really, really good strategy to control spam and improve the quality of your group. How do you filter those people, or do you base it off of those 3 questions, and what are the questions that people should be asking in their groups?
That's a great question. I don't think you could always decide the quality of people from questions.
No.
I think those questions are a great way to get information. So, for example, in Baby Destination, we used to ask, "What's the date of birth of your child?" But somebody misreports it. How do we know, right? And then we used to ask them, their phone number, and then we used to say that we'll add you to the WhatsApp community. So we used to ask them because we were building the local WhatsApp networks. So that's a good question. I think so. In Baby Destination, there was no way for us to know. But the community that we manage right now, which is the growth and monetization community of community admins, now there we ask them to put a link to their Facebook community. So you can only join this community if you're a community admin, for example, right? But not everybody puts the link. So some people who don't put the link still have a community. So you could use it, and if it's, for example, only for entrepreneurs, then you just say that you're the founder, just put the link of the company you founded, or so in those cases you can use it as a filter. I guess in professional communities where there's that credibility, you could ask people to put their LinkedIn profile, etc. But I do not think that in women or parenting or health, nutrition, there's no way to filter people basis that. You'll still have to visit the profile, unfortunately. But Facebook now has very, very good filters for you to automatically reject or people, or move people to the consideration set. For example, people who are a part of the other communities you manage, people who have the same community, like there's common set of communities between you and the person who's requested to join your community. So if we both are in the 5 communities where we are together, or if we have mutual friends. So now Facebook has a very extensive set of filters. I think those are more helpful than the 3 questions.
And then you mentioned engagement it's a really key indicator of growth.
Yeah.
What are the best tips or hacks or things that people can do for engagement? Because I think that's the biggest issue with communities. It's like, all right, I have a community, and I think the biggest question most people have is like, what should I post? Like,
yeah.
How do I keep the conversation rolling without being too repetitive, and also people getting tired of me asking the same thing? But also, you have people that are coming that are new who might be interested in content that you published 3 months ago, and then you have new people who've been in the community for a while, and they're like, well, I don't want to see this again, How do you manage content and build do you build a content plan, or what things do you suggest?
Sure. So again, just going back to basics, people have joined because they have an interest, right? So we have to sort of go with that, right? So they're interested in that topic. And if there is interesting information or value that they get, and they can give both, right? Both is very important. You give them opportunities to give value and get value. That's where sort of the magic happens, or what we call as engagement. The 2 things that sort of define engagement for us, and all our models are kind of built around that, are engagement at a member level and engagement at a post level. So if there's 100 people in your community, how many of those are active daily and active monthly? Right? And Facebook gives some of those, it's in charts in your insights, but you could see that. What we saw is that in good, thriving communities, the daily active to monthly active members ratio is about 45%. So let's say out of 100, if 80% members, if 80 members visit your group monthly, of those, about 45% are coming daily. I mean, that's the reason, right? Like there's such high organic engagement in communities, because it's relevant to people. They've not been shown a paid ad to join it. They've decided to join it. So that is relevant, right? They do visit. Where there's value, they keep visiting. One is this member level. The second I said is post level. So we do look at engagement per post. We call it an activity rate, because you want 70-80% people to be active in a month, but you also want that if there's 100 posts in a month, on an average, a post has, whatever, 30 or 50, and the average that we see is over 25 comments and interactions. Because it shouldn't be like, there's 5 posts that are unanswered, like there's nobody replying. Imagine if I go to your community and I ask a question and nobody responds to me, how would I feel? I'm like, okay, next time, let me go to another community. So these are very small things, but, and which just brings me to this point that measure everything, every single thing day after day. Like I used to literally have an Excel initially. I used to measure every single thing. Until you don't measure, you don't know what's working and what's not working, but measure it at a member and a post level. And then how to sort of, this is a lot of people ask this question, right? What to post, how to post, and engagement hacks. Well, the hack there is that know what to post, when to post. And I'll just take an example on what to post. So in your community, Diego, like, let's say you start seeing that people are asking a lot of questions for certifications on, Google, or more courses linked to how to make money. If you're analyzing that, if you know that this is what people are asking in comments, right? I'm always posting something, but they're always asking something else. Then you know that either you start creating some content around what's relevant to them, right? Or you start filtering people better so that you know that you're not getting people in who would not be interested in Facebook certification, right? So if the content is relevant, they will engage. And knowing what to post comes from insights on conversations, just knowing what people are talking about. When to post is a no-brainer. You would rather post when 80 out of 100 members are within your community in Facebook than post when 10 of them. And again, that's something that's available. You get the most engaging time to post, you just post them. In terms of the member experience, again, first principles, when somebody joins the community, they get excited, they see the name, they see the, purpose of the community, and they join. What's the experience that you're giving them, right? Which is why like having a weekly, so we all do welcome post, but then also doing a post which talks about our values, guidelines, and so that every member goes through that experience, right? They learn what the community is about, they get excited, they get through the first hurdle of commenting, and the next thing is they'll post a question. And when they post a question, boom, they get other people who are answering. Like it's sort of the whole experience which keeps multiplying. And one way to also measure the success is just look at referrals. Look at how many members are organically referring other members. It's a great metric. It's like you recommend a community or add your friends if you see tremendous values. So we kept a close tab on that. Since
I think one thing I would add is also ask your community what they want to see too. Like I think that's valid as well, and it's valid to say like I'm not sure and just ask. And you've been mentioning a lot of like metrics and measurement. Where does Convosight come into play? Because I know that you probably had the pain point of like, all right, I spent hours on this Excel sheet and keeping track of like how many comments and engagement. When does Convosight come into play of like, all right, we've grown all these groups. Now I would imagine you said, this is a pain point I have. You met more community admins and said like, this is a pain point everyone has. How did the whole story of Convosight, when did Convosight come into play?
Sure. So it didn't happen like, we were so hands down just working on Baby Destination. I feel like we had no time to look and see that, what else is going on, because it was crazy growth. At one point, we were adding like 60, 70,000 members every month. It was literally out of hand. But I'll tell you how this happened, right? And I think it was just serendipity, like a lot of other things in our journey. We got selected by Facebook for a program called Facebook Community Leadership Program. And while I talk about that, I do want to mention to everyone here that do stay tuned, like in tune with Facebook, like see what programs they're launching,
Yeah.
and do apply. Like do apply. It's okay if you feel you won't get selected, but do apply to get the experience. I'm fortunate because someone sent me the link. Hey, I saw this program and I think it may be a fit for you. Because I was I wasn't staying in touch with what all they're launching. We were happily building our baby destination. So this program was it was a big deal because they were selecting 100 community leaders from across the globe who were building meaningful, impactful communities, right? That's all they said. And they were investing $10 million in this program. So we literally, we got a grant funding of $50,000, and there's some communities who got $1 million, right? 5 communities got $1 million, and there was a grant funding, and then they said they're putting out a curriculum which really invests in building us as community leaders. As a part of that program, there were 3 in-person interactions, which happened in Menlo Park and Singapore, because I was in the APAC cohort. Um, that was life changing. That experience was life changing, and interacting with those amazing community leaders from across the globe, who I give all the credit for this Convosight too, like, because if it wasn't for them and interacting with them, this would have never happened. We would have still be doing baby destination. It was sort of the light bulb moment when we realized that a lot of those community leaders were struggling with sustainability of their communities. And also, everybody's like, they're great community leaders, everybody's cracked this magic of how to get engagement. The problem is almost too much engagement there, right?
Yeah.
So they were spending hours and hours just managing communities, and a lot of things that we had automated for ourselves. So that's where I just felt that whatever we're doing for baby destination, all of the tools that we've built for moderation, as well as the way we had started monetizing, why don't we put it out in the world? Because if these 100 most powerful sort of leaders, power users of Facebook are facing this problem, imagine the plight of millions out there. And that's really where we said that let's now, just this was just a drop in the ocean. Let's try to put all of this out on a platform and enable and empower admins to better manage communities and sustain their communities, monetize. So we launched this year in January 2020. 2019, like, last year, 2019 is when FCLP got done. We spent about 6 months figuring out how to do this, and then launched in 2020.
And then I know, and I saw somewhere, because I think one of the biggest things I've seen as well with moderators, like you mentioned, is because I was part of the first cohort of the community leadership circles. And one of the biggest questions, like, and I think everyone has it, is how do you monetize the group? And I know you guys have a very interesting like business model that you've built around Convosight as well. Because I think anyone can sign up for Convosight for free at the moment, correct?
Yeah, anyone can sign up for free. You'll have to install it in your group, and then all these sort of things that I'm talking about, unanswered posts. Basically, we've tried to prioritize and organize all the core moderation actions, which we can. There's no personal data that we get, so we cannot, unfortunately, help with approvals. But that's everything else, yeah, which is great, right? Yeah. That there's no personal data that we get. It's all through an official Facebook API, so that Facebook had to approve our API. It's an official Facebook app then, which you install, and then you get access to, it's one place where all your core actions are organized, so that you don't spend hours just trying to figure out if the 100th notification was about spam, and that's where I need to click and act on it. Yeah, so it's free for the moderation side features.
And then what are the things, I guess, what's the difference between managing your group within Facebook than within Convosight, and why should people sign up for Convosight as well and start using it? Because I've used it and I think it's been pretty interesting to see, I think, data in a different way that I don't think Facebook does a good job. I think they're getting better, but I think they're behind in terms of giving you insights of what to do with the group as well, and how healthy is it, how is it, like, I think Convosight does a pretty good job in giving you insights. What are the things you've seen that are very useful and powerful within Convosight that Facebook doesn't provide? And I think people who are joining this, listening to this call interview, they should start using Convosight.
Yeah, so first off, I would say that I mean, I don't think Facebook doesn't do a good job. Like, of course, there's some things they just don't, right? They don't give us insights because then they'll only be building for group admins and they have so many apps to take care of. What I think the problem with Facebook is notification overload. So that's the part that I kind of identified even when I'm talking about FCLP, and I've seen we all go through it. There's one notification feed in which we have 6 different types of like notifications from my profile, my friend's profile, the groups I'm a part of, the groups I manage. It's literally like every second, if you go there, the notifications, right? So that's the problem. It's too many apps, it's too many things in one feed, right? So just to have a place where everything is structured just on the communities that you manage, your actions, your moderators' actions, and your members' actions, I think that's, that's sort of one benefit which just removes all the clutter. And then over and above that, like you said, the core things which we believe are very important for a community success, which is spam control, which is knowing what to post, when to post, right, which is driven off insights, and things like unanswered posts, etc. All of those things are there organized, on Convosight. And I would love to hear feedback, right, of whoever is listening and is spending hours just in moderating and still not feeling like, when you're in control and where you're not in control. When like every day is an ad hoc task to manage, or when, what, I've sent my content calendar for the week. My engagement last week was 50%, and this week it's 60%. Oh, you know why? Because I did that challenge in my community. When you're in control. And I would love to hear just, what the feedback is when you start feeling in control, but it's not easy. You have to be very disciplined. Like we were very disciplined even without Convosight. Like my Excel used to have day-to-day data. So that's what I would say. It's like a different way to start thinking about managing your community.
Nice. I think you've given a lot of tips, and I want to give some minutes before we go for some questions that I have on the chat. And we have a lot, and I don't think we're going to have time to go through all of them, but one is, I'm particularly interested in what ways can monetization be implemented in Facebook groups? And this, I think, goes back to monetization, but what are things you've seen? And I think this is the biggest challenge for most groups I see is, how do you monetize it?
Sure. So, the things that we've seen work, one is brand collaborations. I'm just going to say that because there's our hypothesis and thesis is also that, the largest sort of part of revenues would come from, brands. And it could be either sponsorship. It cannot be an ad. It has to be content that's relevant to your community members. So if they're asking questions about something, it has to be information which is relevant to them. So one is just partnering with relevant brands, whether large or small or a local neighborhood brand, and then showing the value. The other is launching courses, right? Right. So I'm sure, Diego, you can add a lot, more on that. But we've seen even like, just individual-led communities starting courses and just offering subscription courses. And that's a great way to monetize. It takes some time initially, but it's a great source of repeat revenue. Subscriptions, even with small businesses, work very well. We've seen a number of communities in India who run like subscription packages with small businesses. So like, every month I'll do one live with the business owner, informing the people about something, and it's a subscription package, because what you want is repeat revenue, right? Recurring revenue. There's also communities who do some merchandise. So that this is more for like, developed communities and more mature communities where your community is a brand. There's this community in FCLP called This Mom Runs. Right, they have a number of communities across Europe. It's started by a mom, and it's moms who literally, they get into running and they have merchandise, and that's a great way to monetize. I know Facebook is also launching a lot of new features around events, etc., would get your members to pay. We've not seen any successful or scalable sort of cases where members start paying, so that concept of like what Patreon does, and I don't know, have not seen a lot of it from communities. Maybe it's more for individual creators. So that's, I mean, in my mind, that's kind of still a question mark. A number of communities who are buy sell have also monetized very well with having sort of subscription packages with the buyers, because even if they get 1 or 2 sales, it like works pretty well. And you guys should go and check out a platform called Fitter, because that whole company started from a community, right? And then they have an app. So if you're super ambitious, you have a great community, you could have a linked app where you could bring people over and start you know, figuring out a monetization there. Like Fitter connects fitness coaches with the members, and that's how they monetize. So those are some of the ways.
You're right, and I think there's a big challenge of people are used to using Facebook for free, so it's like, why should I pay for an event on Facebook? I think that's like it clashes a little bit there, and I think there's a challenge there. But those are good ways to monetize. The other question, I think, and this one's interesting too, is the majority of my clients are in pharma based. Do Facebook groups work for B2B? Because I know a lot of what we've talked about is more community with end users, or I don't know if you can call them consumers, but what about B2B? What's your experience there, or have you seen communities work with B2B?
Yeah, so that's interesting. We've not seen a lot of communities around B2B, right? It's like, for example, we were talking to Logitech, and they were looking for CIO communities, right? Yeah. And so there's certain categories in which communities, like Facebook groups is not where those communities would form, right? Like cryptocurrency, or like, you know, there's certain categories. And for B2B, I'm not, like, we've not seen a lot of communities out there. But like when you're saying pharma, do you mean more like doctor communities or medical rep communities?
So I'm not sure. We would have to ask the person, but they're just saying pharma based. I would imagine, I don't know.
Yeah. Okay. Yeah. So for example, there are doctor communities. If that's like, you know, there's few doctor communities. There are a few, but yeah, it's not like a lot of B2B communities don't exist.
And what about software, like SaaS businesses who build a community so that they can get more info and tutorials and help? And have you seen that working as well?
Yeah, I mean, it's well, we're different because, you know, we're targeting community admins. I mean, those are our users that we're serving. But SaaS businesses, you know, if your audience, if your consumers would be on Facebook, then yeah, I think every business should have a community. Like, there's no better way to constantly acquire, you know, your customers rather than a community. Now, whether you build it on Facebook or whether you build it on Slack or Discord depends on the category. But
awesome. No, I don't want to take more time. This is great conversation. We had really good story. I love the minimal viable community, and start with that. I think that was a good one. And also how to name the community. I hadn't thought about that, but I think it's key, like the whole pain point and then audience, and then it'll draw attention because you're playing with the emotional side of the pain point and then drawing to the audience of like, I identify with this, so this is a group for me, and it'll be easier for people to say like, this is the content that they'll do. Moderation is key, and also filtering people. I think like preventing spam, and one of the best ways to prevent spam is who do you let in your community, and I think that's key as well. Measuring conversation and engagement. I like the rule of like 80% of your members should be active every month, and I think it was 45% daily.
Yeah, the daily active monthly active should be 45%.
And like plus 25 comments on post, because I agree, like if you go into the community, you ask a question and no one answers, it's like, well, then what's the point of the community?
Yeah.
Why should I join? And monetization, I think ideas. I think those were great tips. I want to thank you, Tammana, for taking the time. The last question is, how can people join Convosight? Where can they find information? If they're group members, I know you mentioned you guys have a group as well where people can join. I'm a member, and I'll post it on the live feed as well. But where can people find you guys?
So, like you said, the group is where, there's around 1,500 community admins. So it's called Growth and Monetization, and we can share the link. On Convosight, you can visit convosight.com and get all the information there. You can install it only on a desktop. So Facebook has a limitation that you could install it only on the desktop, and it's a two-step installation process. If you have trouble installing, you could just like there's a fresh chat there. We're there to help. We also do a lot of workshops on monetization and around Facebook group growth. So very happy to do a special session, just deep diving into monetization, how we landed our first client, and all of those things, because I know it's not easy. I do want to say this, that it is not easy. It has taken, when I was telling my story, think about this. I had the idea in 2015. In 2016, I had the courage to leave everything and move to India. And now here we are in 2020. So it takes time. It's not easy. It's not like, hey, everybody knows Instagram, because I hear that a lot, right? Nobody knows Facebook groups. So that's reality. Nobody knows Facebook group, but it's changing now. So just know that it's changing. Because I hear that a lot, and I feel very bad, because I feel community admins do a lot of work, but there's not enough information out there, or people are not aware. But yeah, find us on convosight.com, and would love to hear feedback. My email is tamana@convosight.com. If there's anything, you can reach out to me directly, and would love to help.
Awesome. No, thanks for taking the time. I loved how you ended with landing landing the right community. I think landing the right members is key at the end of the day to build a thriving community. Thanks again for taking the time. For those of you joining live, I know that there's someone from Convosight answering questions as well. So make sure you keep answering if you're watching the replay as well. Subscribe to our channel, and thanks again, Tammana. Have enjoyed the rest of your week, and thanks for taking the time.
Thanks so much, Diego. I just enjoyed chatting with you. I wish I could see you all in person, whoever's joined live, but someday, right? We'll do. Thank you all so much.
All right, thanks.
Bye.
Thank you. Have a good day.
You too. Bye.